I recently made a video on YouTube where I talked about how you can get a residence permit in a tax-free country by buying cheap real estate. And the country I spoke of was Bahrain in the Middle East. And the feedback that I got wasn't so much about the Middle East part, but about the cheap part. People said, these prices that you're talking about don't really seem that cheap. But I'm going to explain why real estate in tax-free and tax-friendly countries is such a great opportunity and why I think Bahrain and other countries like it are worth considering. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson, and here at Nomad Capitalist, we help 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs legally go where you're treated best. You can learn more at nomadcapitalist.com. And let me give you a little bit of background about why I like real estate opportunities in countries like Bahrain, particularly for end users who want to have a plan B or even an active plan A of a place they can go, keep more of their own money. And that is the idea that throughout the years, you have had countries emerge, Singapore being a great example, often from relative obscurity, sometimes from outright poverty, and they have done the right things. They have had the right economic policies. They have had the right cultural perspective, and they have grown. They've risen from the ashes in many cases to become Singapore, to become South Korea, to become so many of the other economies that we talk about today that are welcoming, that are relatively tax-friendly, if not tax-free. And so as these countries grow, as they develop, as they get what we call a brand name around them, people go to those places. Now you go to Singapore, you will see every successful company, certainly every successful bank practically in the world is doing something in Singapore. It is a financial hub, and they built it up from something that, it certainly wasn't that before, but they created that, and now everyone came to them. And so as more companies and then more people want to move to these places, prices have to go up. And so you look at what has happened, for example, in the UAE, in the same neighborhood as Bahrain. Dubai, if you look at all the old pictures at the Dubai airport, you'll see they used to have to clear the camels off the runway when the planes would land. They would go out with a broom and they would clear the camels off. That was in some of our viewers' lifetimes that was happening, and look at it now. And so as companies come, because the policies are right, certainly the geography I think also needs to be right, but as the policies, the taxes, the opportunities are right, companies come and move in, and people follow them. And what I see, because I get so much feedback from people, not only that I work with, but on all of our videos and all of our articles for years now, from millions of people who watch, is there is a skepticism about the next big thing. I've been saying this from almost day one. I remember sitting in a train going to the airport in Seoul back in 2013 and writing about how don't wait for the next Singapore, just find it now, invest in it now. And I've talked about experiences such as the home that I own in Tbilisi, Georgia. If you would have bought that home back in the mid-1990s when people were really desperate, you probably would have paid $5,000 or $6,000. Now it's worth obviously a lot more than that. And it's not a matter of inflation. It's a matter of the fact that now it's much more of a proven commodity. And certainly we've played a role in making Georgia a place that people feel comfortable going and investing, along with all the rankings saying that they have made a lot of improvements. And so when I've talked about countries that are up and coming, when we made a video about the Uzbekistans and the Madagascars, some of those countries will not become the next Singapore. Most countries won't be the next Singapore, but might be a niche version of Singapore, specializing in one thing. But the issue, the feedback that I'll tell you that I get is that people don't want to go until it's absolutely proven. And once Dubai is proven, once Singapore is proven, then prices are going to go up because people are flocking to be there. And you start seeing more and more luxury developments. You start seeing beautiful malls and skyscrapers, and then people want to live around that. You want to live in downtown Dubai, it is expensive. You want to live at the Dubai Marina, it is expensive. You want to buy property in Nicaragua, in southern Nicaragua, on near San Juan del Sur. I know people who were buying up property on the water when it was dirt cheap. Once it gets discovered, even in a niche area, it's not going to be dirt cheap anymore. And so when I talked about Bahrain, we talked about probably the most popular expat area in the capital, which is called Sif. And I know people who've lived in Bahrain, they said that's where you want to live. You want to live in Sif. And we went and looked at properties, $1,700, $1,800, $1,900 per meter. You're talking about $160 a foot, let's call it, US. Now, to me, I've said the standard for dirt cheap property in a capital city in a good location is $1,000 per meter. And with inflationary forces, I might need to raise that in some point in the near future. But you go to an up-and-coming place. You go to a Tbilisi, you go to a Islamabad, Cairo, places that have gotten beaten up over the head with a stick, or places that are just emerging. $1,000, that, in my opinion, is ultra cheap. I'm talking you're in the capital city, you're in a good area. And so if you go to Tbilisi, prices had gone up in the city center for unrenovated properties from when I started buying there a number of years ago, $500, $600 a meter. I've been seeing stuff as high as $1,200, $1,300. Great locations, lots of potential, but you've got a lot of investors coming in, not only from the places where we reach, but also a lot of Arabic investors, a lot of Turkish investors have gone in. They've driven those prices up because they're renting it on Airbnb, taxes are low, or they're moving there, or it's their bolt hole, whatever it may be. And so you're talking about, let's call it $1,100 a meter if you get a decent deal. Those prices may be going back down this year a little bit, but let's call it $1,100. Then you got to fix it up. It's not that expensive, but if you got to strip it down to what they call black frame and then build it back up, you might be looking at $300 a meter. So now you're at $1,400, maybe $1,500. You've got a nice property in a country that is certainly tax friendly, that has tourism, but doesn't have a huge domestic economy. Right? You could do the same thing. Our friend Reed at Investation in Cambodia has a Cambodian company. People invest in it. They buy single-family and multifamily properties. They're buying things that foreigners can't buy. Foreigners are buying condos for high prices, but he's buying shop house apartments and multifamily for under $1,000 a meter. And then he's fixing it up, and then he's adding extra space. And so, these are not huge domestic economies we're talking about, Cambodia, Georgia, what have you. Neither is Bahrain, of course. Now, while these countries may be moderately tax-friendly for investors, or Georgia's pretty tax-friendly for businesses too, they're not tax-free. And so in Bahrain, you go to an area like Sif, and for that $1,000, let's call it $800 a meter, you're not getting a place where you need to come in and finish it. You're getting something that's basically move-in ready. It's the same standard that you would see at a property if you went on Property Finder in Dubai. You would see something that's pretty much ready to go. You may want to make some cosmetic changes. Certainly some of the properties don't entirely match the Western aesthetics that you may be looking for, but you've got some pretty nice looking places. And maybe you pay an extra $100 a meter to get the one that's decorated the way you like, just to avoid the hassles. But for my standards, a country that may not have a ton of endless domestic growth potential, but that gives you a place where you can live in a tax-free country that probably, in my mind, has fewer incentives to not be a tax-free country than many other places. A place that in the region is known as being relatively liberal. Right? You can go and buy a property. You can get a residence permit. You can have the privilege to live there. Potentially, you can turn that into your tax home. Or you can just keep it in your back pocket as a place where you can go and spend time. You could rent it out and make a halfway decent margin in a country that not paying your rent is not particularly seen as a good thing. And you could eventually go and live there again as a back pocket option. So by my standards, when you look at the Monacos of the world, obviously among the tiniest of domestic economies, when you look at the Andorras, certainly when you look at Singapore, the Cayman Islands, those things have things for sure that Bahrain does not. But Bahrain has coasts. There's an area in south of Bahrain you're allowed to buy in. You can buy in Amouage, east of the capital city's airport. That's an island. Probably pretty sleepy for most single people, maybe even for some families. But if you're looking for kind of a sleepy, island experience, you don't have to go to the Cayman Islands. You can go to Bahrain and buy property for a lot less. And so, I think that there's a reason, as I've said, that properties in many parts of Spain and Italy and Greece are dirt cheap. And it's because who wants to put up with high property taxes? Who wants to put up with knowing that the government changes the rules whenever they want? I was looking at recently at how Italy how you can pay no property tax now on your primary residence if you live in Italy and if you pay income tax. I got a report from my real estate manager. This thing must have been a bloody page long explaining how you cannot pay property taxes. It's a page of regulations how to not pay one tax. Who needs that, right? And so, to me, you go to cities like I've been to Valencia in Spain or many of these cities in Italy, and real estate, it's not that expensive, but there's a reason, right? And you can go and live in a place and have a good lifestyle, be away from all the Western madness. I think a country like Bahrain, a country like Georgia, other countries that are developing tax-friendly policies where real estate is at that price point is a worthy investment as a place where you could potentially live as a bolt hole. Maybe there's some income potential. It may not be the most optimum investment, but it is an excellent plan B that pays for itself. That's why I think real estate in those kinds of places is indeed cheap. How can Nomad Capitalist help you? 4 ways. Number 1, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell to make sure you get our new video every day. Number 2, get a copy of Nomad Capitalist, the book. You'll learn a lot of my personal experiences over a dozen years of studying this stuff, as well as exactly some of the strategies that you can use to build your Nomad Capitalist plan. Number 3, if you're not sure where to start, but you want to come and learn from my team and I, you want to come and mingle with like-minded people, learn more about our live conference, Nomad Capitalist Live. It's coming up soon. And number 4, if you want some help right now because you've got a burning issue, you need something solved, you want to lower your taxes, get a second passport, or build the Nomad Capitalist lifestyle of your dreams, go to nomadcapitalist.com and click on Become a Client.